on how to shoot best this painting video. But applying a simple color of black is the easiest thing in the world. Fine-tuning it. I just spent about an hour just going over this, crisping some of the lines, trying to make them the same diameter and stuff. And really, without looking at the old pictures, you'd never know it. But it looks really good, and I got it really close. Even here up in the corners, you see the same shapes. I did a really good job. These are glue gun hinges for now, just to allow me to build it and test it. Let me show you. It's a sick design. Here we've got the silver tips. Easy to do. It needs a touch-up. There's a little overrun there, little spot there, little spot there. These lines need to be straightened. This white one needs to be redone. And then these two black ones need to be redone because the silver ran over a little. But that's okay. Once this is done, they'll be the same width. This one needs to be wider a little bit. But in general, it's really close. And I like the paint job. Then we got these guys. Again, I wanted this to be kind of World War I. I didn't want it to look perfect. I wanted it to look kind of military. I do want to touch up in here, but I'm actually going to do that with a brush. And I'm not bothering to do it on camera, but it will get done. It's silver along the front edge, then black and black at the back edge. I'm actually going to do the back edge of the tail black as well, so that it helps me to delineate whether it's heading away from me or towards me. So I'm going to do the back of the tail black, but only up to the just before the tip stops. So basically the tip stops right here. I want it right here. And all that'll be black. So if I'm looking at it from the back, it'll be black. From the front, it'll be silver. And I'll keep that here. So I'm going to do this top wing like that as well. And it'll help to differentiate the aircraft in the air. Let's move over to our painting table. And we will see you have the blackest night. I might even call this one the Black Night, because it is so black, guys. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use white on this one, I've decided. But look at it. I mean, up against anything black, it instantly vanishes. It's not even there. These are stealth aircraft, guys. They're sick. They're my two Batwing Biplane Designs that you guys haven't really seen in detail so far. And you probably never will now, because if you want to see them in detail, you got to watch the build video to see how much detail these wings have. But in the end, they have a nice shape, guys. And we're going to accentuate that shape on this one with silver by doing what I did on the other ones, by running a thin silver bead around the edge. It's really easy to do. And we're going to do the exact same thing on the back. The trick is the curves make it a little tricky, but we're going to do that. It's really easy. This one is actually going to be run one of two ways. I haven't decided yet. It could be 4-channel, and it could be 2-channel, and it could even be 2-channel just run by the tail right now. That's pretty much how it's set up. I need to re-glue this, and testing that popped. Which brings me to another point. In the end, these are foam aircraft, guys, that are homemade, and they will not survive a hard crash. They will survive flight after flight after flight once you've built them properly. I generally put the tiniest amount of glue in so that I can adjust them. That's an easy fix. I just hold it open, put the tip of the glue gun in, put a dab in, hold it down, it's perfect, it's done. That's a 2-second fix. One of the other ones, the Eagle, has a similar fix that needs to be made from testing. But that's fine. Speaking of which, that is going to get painted soon, but also this guy. And the only reason I haven't started painting it yet is because the tail isn't done. I just threw this one on so I could put the landing gear together. So I have another tail to make there. The Eagle will get done, but I've changed my mind about the landing gear setup, and I want to redo that. So I might use wheels because they're lighter. And it'll be in better keeping with its indoor-outdoor appeal. That being said, I just wanted to show you guys really quickly how to go about this and how much of a difference it makes to take your time. So I'm going to do a series on these Batwing aircraft, and we're actually going to paint them both together, guys. So even when you're up here, you guys have a hard time seeing these, I'm sure. But what we're going to do is put you more out towards me so you can see a little bit of my hands and what I'll be working on. So we're going to get our black, we're going to shake it up, This isn't going to take long, guys, because what we're going to do is just put a second coat of black onto both of these in this video, and that is thoroughly unexciting. However, this is a big part of painting, is doing little tasks like this. Getting things done just right usually requires effort, time. It's not rocket science, but it is absolutely science, guys. Now, when I originally did these, I did these with a brush. The coverage wasn't the best, and it took a really long time. Watch this. Bam, a nice, smooth, clean coat, and then you work your way down and just kind of keep working it until you get it nice and smooth. Now I'm going to add some more. I'm going to just go over this surface, and you'll see it comes out really nicely and really quickly, and that is a great thing. And we can do this a couple more times just to make sure we don't have any excess. Now we're going to flip it around. Going to do the other side. I'm just going to apply some material and then drag it around. You don't have to be shy to do that with a sponge. It works really the best when you do it this way. And that way you'll get, like this, a nice clean coverage. And your second coat will go on just like your first coat in seconds. And that is why I really love the sponge method, because it makes it so much easier, guys. And then I'll carry the other end of the sponge over the sponge without any paint, strange as that may seem, over the whole thing with just one time, like that. And then just one time on the other side. And now I'm going to bring this one time with some paint on it up the leading edge. Without putting hard pressure, I just want to make sure that I'm covering all the edges. But I'm not pushing hard. I don't want to squeeze out any paint. And there you go. There's a layer. It's pretty neat. And again, we're going to go over the edges, top and bottom, just to make sure there's no buildup. One of the reasons we're doing this on the tail is you want the tail to be as light as possible, guys. So now we're going to go on to the wing. And look at the way the brush, if you could see it, the way that the brush left a lot of marks. It really didn't cover very well. You look at a sponge covered project and you don't see that. The first coat will be that much better. Well, put it to you this way. When I do a brush, I usually have to do 3 coats. When I do it with a sponge, I usually only need 2, which is pretty sweet. So in this case, I have a coat down already. I might need to touch up this coat, but I won't need to do a third one. And if I do, I will do a third coat. Ooh, one of my little planes just fell off. Using the tape to hold up planes on the wall works, but every once in a while the tape lets go. You've got gravity working against you, don't forget. So every once in a while you're going to have to replace them. I just put a new plane on that piece of tape and replaced, it was one of the ones I was working on. I'll probably show it to you in a minute here. See how that smooths things up? Makes things neater, makes it so there's one nice thin layer. There were some glue spots on here. This one's not perfect, but it's not far off, and that's good enough. It'll fly well. In fact, in glide tests, all these did very, very well, guys. So I'm not worried about the gliding. In fact, I'm pretty excited about its glide potential. So we're just gonna make sure it gets a nice thick layer of paint. And once it's done, I'm going to go back on the inside. It's one of the reasons I like to use a sponge. I can just kind of push the sponge up inside. Be prepared to get your hands dirty for this one, guys, but trust me, it's not a big deal. This paint comes off so easily. Also, I can bunch up the sponge like a paintbrush and try and get it into every nook and cranny. And that will be a good thing. And then you can kind of just smush it around. You can push it up against the sides of things, squeeze out a little paint onto my target like that and get it all covered. That's a good thing. Now this won't be the neatest paint job in the world, but it will work and it will fill in all the blanks. And get a nice covered painted aircraft that doesn't have any white spots, and that's the real thing. in these spots, nobody's going to see what I'm doing right now. It's like I'm about to turn the wing over. Nobody's ever going to see that side of the wing. It's up under here, but I'm still going to do it with a second coat. And I'm just going to bring it in and bring it along and keep pushing it in a little deeper. And then I'll go around the other side and come in from the other direction, guys. And it's the same thing in both cases. I'm just struggling to fill in. And now because I've touched it, I'm going to go back over here and I'm just going to fill in any spots that I've touched it. This wasn't a fingerprint, that was actually damage from testing. But it did pass testing and still flies perfect, so I'm not worried about it. Now this brings me to the point I was getting to earlier. When you're dealing with a project like this, don't expect these to last forever, guys. Just don't. You don't want to see any white though. As soon as you crash it, they're pretty much toast. But your electronics will more than likely survive that. And I like it because I can build multiples. I'm not just building one. I built a bunch using the materials I had. And I'll air test every one of them. And then come up with a version 2 of each one based on any observations I saw on every single one that I wasn't 100% satisfied. I come up with a version 2. So, this is the end of this aircraft's tweaking, and it looks pretty good. It's not so bad. When it's dry, it'll be just fine, which covers the next part of this. When you want to leave these to dry, check this out. See these little guys? See this? Set it into it, and if you have it deep enough in there and firm enough in there, it should just stand up all on its own. Check this out. And voila, so that I can keep it from falling over. You could use a pencil eraser and just stick a pencil in it until you get it to the diameter where you can just jam the end of that in there and you're good to go. I also recommend this to paint it on when I'm holding it. This is so much easier. You guys saw me messing around with my bare hands. Yo, don't do that. Find a way to hold on to it like this and you'll find this is a much better way. That being said, I'm going to put this one aside because we are finished with it for now. And we're going to go right on to this one, which is why I'm not using it to hold anything up. But I could find something else. Here's an old brush. And you'll notice it's got a hole in it. I could pop one of these out and use this type of a pin cushion to hold a plane or two while I'm working. That's just another life hack from Keith. So I want to do this fairly quickly. So now we're going to put this aside. And I'm going to do it with a brush. And the reason I'm going to do it with a brush is to show you guys the difference. Now, if I do this quick with a brush, but efficient, it'll still take longer than it took me to paint the other plane, all things being equal, if I take my time and do it right. Because it has less surface area, I need to make more strokes. Now, I am going to do this as quickly as humanly possible. And that'll be the other part. It'll lead to more mistakes. Doing it fast inevitably leads to mistakes. But I'm just doing the same process, putting it on as quickly as I can in this case. And this is kind of to show you something too. If you're as good with a brush as this, you don't have to worry too much. You can just go and do it with a brush. You can do it with whatever you want. But in the end, for the beginner, use a sponge, guys. It's so much easier. It'll get the job done very quickly, and it'll, in the end, give you a job that doesn't look bad. Really, it will. It'll give you a nice-looking job that you'll be proud of later, as opposed to some butt-ugly thing. Now, the other thing about a brush is I can readily and easily get up into all these little areas, but it leaves brush strokes, and unless I'm really careful about it and make sure I have the exact right amount of paint on my brush, it gets messy, guys. And that is why I dislike it. Because in the end, if you're a beginner, that kind of mess is the kind of thing you're trying to avoid. And it can be very frustrating when you can't avoid that mess. So here, I'm just reaching in, getting the area completely covered. But while I'm doing it quickly, I'm also taking the time to make sure that I'm doing it fully and completely. There will be no missed spots. There will be none of that shit. It will be perfect. Now, this is an engineering channel and a build channel, and I shouldn't have swore there. There may be young folks watching. Now, I do realize that I don't advertise this channel for kids, but because this series is so directed at children, if you wonder why you've heard me kind of curb the language for this one, that would be why, and that was an honest mistake, guys. I try not to swear at all on my channel, and it's just very rare that I do. Usually it's to show emotion. If you hear me swearing on some point, like say for example I'm talking about how much time it took to paint an aircraft, chances are it took me a really long time if I swear during the description. You bet that I swore several times during the build. And this was actually one of those. Coming up with this wing was incredibly difficult, you guys. If you really look carefully at this wing, it's kind of gorgeous. It has a really, really nice profile, you guys. And it is a beaut. Like, of all the wings I've made, this has got to be one of the sexiest ones. And it's going to have a crazy roll rate if I give it ailerons, which I plan to do. So now I'm just going around making sure it's nice and even. When you do it by hand with a brush, you'll get all kinds of places that aren't. On the upper side here, same thing. I could not bother, but who wants to not bother when you're talking about a decent paint job? I mean, the whole point, if you're building these, you want to bother, man. Let's be realistic. You're like me. You actually care. You want it to look good. So bother. Spend the time to make it look proper, and you'll be glad you did. And what you'll see with a brush is that it's leaving a lot of little brush strokes, guys. And this is what I was talking about. When you're going to be leaving brush strokes everywhere, not only will the paint not go on as evenly, you'll find if you're weighing your paint job, which is what I did back in the day that led me to really notice the paint that I was putting on. I started weighing it after I painted it and before, and that taught me a lot about the weight of paint. And you can actually put a lot of paint weight on without really trying very hard, guys. So I'm just going to finish here, putting my nice light second coat. And again, I want the tail as light as possible in the end. So I'm going to make sure that I put as little paint on it as I possibly can. Just enough to cover, guys, is really key on the tail. You can put more other places, but in the end, put the least on your tail. So I am going to come along here, and with the sponge and with the paint that's on it still, look at how much faster that is, guys. And there you go. There's the entire second coat done on the tail, and it looks great, right? I mean, this is just one of those things, and where it doesn't, it's so easy to touch up that I really like doing it this way, guys. If you're doing surfaces like that, look at that. Much nicer, eh? And we're good. So I'm going to put this aside. We are going to stop. And just to show it, even though I've done it with the brush, just to keep it as light as possible, I'm going to give it a quick dusting, top and bottom, but not in the middle. And believe it or not, the reason is I don't mind that paint being a little heavier in here. Keeps the weight in the right spot on the body. It'll help it float nice. That's not a bad thing. We are done. I'm going to go wash this out. I'm going to set this up so it doesn't actually physically make contact with anything, which I've done. Just to show you that. And look at that. It fell over, but it had time to pretty much dry. And it looks way better, guys. Look at that. Not a bad profile. It's going to be sweet when it flies. It actually flies really nice. It's got a huge tail because this one, and huge elevator that is split. And the idea is it's going to be a 3-channel, and it's not going to have ailerons. It's going to have a split rudder, and it's going to have a split elevator and a split rudder, and that'll be it. Funny, I showed you that it would stay. It stayed so easily for me, and now it doesn't want to. During the fall, it was moved. What the heck? Really? Suddenly it's impossible to make it stand up. And it did just fine. Oh, you bugger. I don't even know what's up with that. But it's okay, and I don't want it to fall over, so that's why I recommend this method. It's actually proven to be the most reliable. You do something like this, it falls over. Anyway, that's it for now. We got 2 nice looking coats of paint on our 2 nice little Batwing biplanes. And I'll be showing you more of these guys in the future. This is now a 20-minute video, guys, just to show you how to coat an airplane with a basic color. And that is why you will never see me do another video like this. They're boring as hell. I don't like it. I'd like to finish products. I thought I'd show you. This was the aircraft that fell. This is the offending spot. And it's a piece of tape that has lost its love of sticking to things. So for now, I'll just leave it like that, but it will fall again. As I said, it will fall again. So we're not just going to leave it there. I'm going to put it over here. And this is now my problem. I've stopped designing models, and the reason is my walls are filled with them. I've got too many models. I got to get to painting now. So I decided on 5 models that I wanted to move forward with. In fact, I decided on 7, but right now I can't. You know, I don't have the money to put all those together. Hobby shop here in Ottawa had told me they were going to sponsor me, but they were full of crap. Instead, they basically invited 3 people to my house. 3 people invited themselves from the staff, and they didn't have a problem with that. I do. Since COVID, we don't allow more than 1 guest in the house at a time, and they wanted to do it in my home, and I don't even know them yet. They just decided they were going to do that. It was pretty uncool. So I said no, and now they don't want to sponsor me because I said no, which is pretty crappy. So they won't return any of my calls. They owe me money from going there years ago ordering parts, and they tell me they owe me $350 1 minute, and then tell me they're basically screwing me the next by not answering my calls. So I'm going to have to take them to the Better Business Bureau instead of actually doing business with them, which is appalling. I mean, this is part of the reason the hobby's in the state it's in. There was a racing league here in Ottawa. But I can't say it was good. It was nothing but problems, and it was the people who were managing it that were the problem. And it seems that problem continues to this day and continues to plague this hobby, which is really unfortunate because, well, if it wasn't for that, I probably just would have gone and bought one. So maybe it's not so bad. At least this way I'm designing cool stuff. Keith out.